along to another episode of Sweet Tea and Coffee. This is episode 55, and I got my boxing gloves on today because the last time this guest was here, he came in swinging. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys remember the episode, but you can look back on it. Just find the name Todd Wright, and you will know. The way that podcast starts, you will know why I'm ready for a fight today. But seriously, we're glad to have Todd here. We're going to do things a little bit different today. Todd's actually going to... I don't know why we keep doing this. We keep letting him lead, especially the way he behaves in here. But he's
What kind of example is this setting for every other guest that we have?
We have a really cool moment coming up in the life of our church on September 11th, and hope you guys are going to be able to be there, where Blake is going to be sharing not just some of the songs from the new album, but some of the songs that over the last 10 years that he has written that are really deeply woven into the life and the stories of people here in this congregation and what has gone on here. And he's going to be doing both playing music and sharing some of those stories. And so in conjunction with the release of this new album. So Todd is here and is going to talk through that process, talk to Blake about that album. He may throw in a few questions to me as well. We'll see how it goes. But before we get started, we need to mention
we had a friend of the pod.
Forever friend of the pod.
She created this new category.
Wow, I like it.
Called the Forever Friend of the Pod. We got a nice email from Jennifer Whitehead. And what's crazy is about this, she binged all of our episodes in a matter of days. Like I there's no way I could do that. I could not listen to us.
I couldn't listen to you. I mean, us for that long.
Yeah.
Jennifer, that's amazing. Thank you. Thanks for setting a Guinness Book of World Records for the fastest.
What's really cool is that, like, as she's listening to these episodes, she's seeing all these connections of people that she knows, and
that's right.
That didn't know their story, or we grew up 10 miles from each other and had no idea, and things like that. So it's really neat.
I got to give another shout out to Rose Phillips, who we had a conversation on Sunday, and she was saying that she was listening to a few of the episodes and said the exact same thing, that it's been really neat to pass people in the halls of church, and then there's a whole nother layer and dimension to her understanding and knowledge of their story and their relationship, just because they've listened to one another tell their story. Yeah. So that's been really cool. So thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Rose, for the feedback. Again, we really encourage you to do that. It always encourages us and our guests how their stories have impacted you. But I feel like we should have the what's the right before the boxing match, the ding 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 ding. Yeah. Let's get ready to like that whole thing. That needs to be the intro to the pod. So episode 55, Todd Wright. Here we go.
Let me just speak blessing and honor to both of you, and I'd like to start with an apology, if that's okay. Could I?
You came in with a voice like an NPR host for a second.
Could y'all just be quiet for a second?
Okay. Sure. All right.
I'd like to apologize to the listeners for what happened last time. I did come in hot. I was excited. I was nervous. You get scared. I was like a little kitten, just scared of everything.
It's intimidating.
I'm in this elaborate, lavish studio that you spent, man, no telling how much money on.
Tens of dollars.
Yes. But I'm so glad to be back. I guess I'm the favorite guest. Is that what this is? Did I get voted?
I think there's already a different episode called The Favorite Guest. I don't know.
Oh,
or most requested.
Are you going to edit this one back in? Or?
I don't know.
But he is the only repeat. We've had two-parters, but he's the only repeat, right?
Aside from Matt, he's on staff.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Okay.
Surely eventually.
So that's a good thing.
Y'all will run out of new faces eventually.
We do have ones that we have said that they're going to come back.
Yeah.
They haven't come back yet, but we are planning to have them come back.
Well, that's so interesting to me. So, I mean, I don't know of a lot of churches. I mean, I'm sure there are. I don't know a lot of churches that do a church life podcast like this. Like most church podcasts, you find it's going to be sermons or recordings of Bible studies or things. It's a pretty cool thing that you're doing. And so, you're talking about the people who are making those connections. The longer you do it, the more that becomes like a thing. Like they're not your cast, but they kind of are. It's just a great, and those are the stories you tell. And if you guys had to do 55 podcast of just original content, you'd be sunk. Like you wouldn't have it.
We would have quit a long time ago.
So it's so great that you're stewarding these stories instead of like.
And we've noticed our original content; those episodes are the least popular episodes that we have. So we're dependent on the.
People were like, "It got good when y'all stopped talking."
That is 100% true.
Okay, so what we're doing today, this was my idea, is that I want to interview you both about the new record, which comes out tomorrow,
That's
right?
correct.
If they're listening to this, it comes out tomorrow, and then the big event on the 11th. What are y'all calling that on the 11th?
Stories and Songs.
Stories and Songs. Okay. I think I'm coming to that. Am
I
I still
hope so.
invited?
You're supposed to be singing on some of the songs, so hopefully you were there.
I know, I did. So Blake sent this list out of, sort of who's singing where, and so I'm a worship leader at my church. I'm used to singing all the songs.
Right. Yeah, I knew that was going to be tough for you.
So, I mean, I'm scanning down the list like, not on that one, not on that one. Oh, there I am.
It's at the very end.
When most people have left or two.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. And like Kendall said, to hear all, more than just these new songs, right? Just to sort of look back at what God's done. And
well, and you've been a huge part of that. I mean, like probably half the songs in that list are ones that you and I have co-wrote together. So.
And I'm excited to hear them. I mean, so that's the thing. You write things and you hope they work, and you can record them and you go, well, that sounds good, but it's a whole different thing when you do it in front of people. It's and sometimes they don't work, right? Sometimes you write something and you go, that didn't really land, but you got to try.
Well, and this is kind of a unique thing that we've written a song that worked really well at your church and didn't work so well here. And it's just the difference is they connected completely differently.
I think because we're more spiritual.
Maybe so.
Yeah, I think we're just closer. We're more serious about it, maybe?
Maybe so.
No, I'm kidding. I think a lot of people last time didn't know. They didn't know I was kidding. Most of the things I'm going to say today are false. Like all these compliments I just paid. It's a whole thing. No, so my idea was to interview both of you about not just the new project, but just about this idea of a church writing its own songs. So just this morning I was thinking, so Blake, my question for you is, so you've put all this work into this new collection, most recently, and you've been done with it for a little while.
That's correct.
Right. So this isn't like, oh, you're at the finish line and you're just now getting it done. What I know about making music is even when you're done, when you're sort of deciding, the mix and the cover art, and so you sort of dive into the project all over again. Does this sound right? Does the bass need to be up? Does the artwork look good? I'm curious, now that you had to wait a couple months probably with it being done.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite sort of thing to emerge from that? Like, have there been moments you're like, oh, I didn't even notice that the drums did that thing, or that's my favorite song, or this has been my favorite part of the process. Anything that's maybe surprised you about it, having to just wait and listen to it constantly?
Yeah, what's weird is that we finished, I mean, I think I had the final mixes in April, so it's been done for months now, and that's not normal, but, a huge part of our church is college students, and so about the time we finished it was the time that they were leaving town, and I didn't want to release this without that crew here, and so that was kind of the reasoning behind it. But as I, occasionally come back to it and listen to it, I definitely notice a lot more different little nuances and instrumental parts and things that I didn't hear before. It's hard to walk away and say, okay, this album's done. That's like one of the hardest things to do. And I was watching a YouTube video the other day of the guy that mixed Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA album. And the guys that were interviewing him were like, well, how did you know, like, when you were done mixing it? And he kind of was like, I just kind of stopped walking up to it and tinkering and messing with things. And I kind of feel the same way, once we kind of got to the end of it, I felt like that was all that needed to be done to it. It's really easy to get in there and just keep messing with stuff and try to find something perfect. But I felt pretty content. And even listening back to it, I don't hear anything that I'd be like, oh, that's awful. Like, why did we go that direction? I'm really happy with it. Yeah. And I don't know. Now it's just kind of that anticipation, anxiety of like, okay, how is that going to, because it really, there's only probably a dozen people that have heard the album in its entirety at this point. So,
yeah. And some people might know this, but mix engineers a lot of times will talk about their ears getting tired when they're mixing a record. So if you're like really into a record, like sometimes you will hear engineers say, I had to stop working on it for a week because I've listened to this song 30 times today. I don't know anymore, if that's right, if the vocals are loud enough or whatever. So yeah, it might be a little bit of a gift in that. And let me just say this, kudos for your patience, because most worship leaders I know, especially ones that write and record their own music, like as soon as it's done, they're like, everybody needs to hear this today. Right. And so, man, props, because I'm sure that was hard. I mean, you're a pretty chill, patient guy, but I know that feeling of like, man, I'm so proud of this. Right? Yeah. And I'll say this before I ask Kendall this next question. So the thing that I think is really interesting about putting music out is I think there's a real difference. And this is what it feels like as I've talked to you about it in the process. So you will hear people say one of two things when they put music out. They will say, I'm really excited for people to hear this, or they'll say, I'm really proud of what we did. And so the interesting thing about saying I'm excited about it, which I've done a million times, is most of the time what you're saying is like, I'm excited means I have this expectation, like wait till they hear this. Yeah. They're going to lose their minds. And a lot of times they don't lose their minds. A lot of times they're like, good job. And then they move on. Whereas saying, hey, I'm really proud of what we did is much more of a sort of grateful, thank you, God, for the gift to be able to do this, and then moving on. And it feels like y'all have that kind of attitude. You want it to bless people, right? Yeah. But you're not sitting around going, man, my worth rests on whether this thing gets streamed or not. Right. Right. Yeah. You've been faithful, and that's the contentment.
Well, and a lot of that goes back to even this stylistically, the way this project is put together, instrumentation and everything, and even the way that the lyrics are written and what it was written for. It's not your traditional worship EP that you would hear from whatever megachurch down the street. And so, I'm trying not to put in a lot of expectation of how that album
just because
perform.
It's different already.
It's different already, but that makes me proud of it, that it's something different. It's not the same thing.
Well, so that's what I was going to ask you, Kendall. So I think most people that have that listen to worship music or listen to Christian radio, or at least have some awareness of church culture. So a lot of worship music now that's out there is tied to churches, right? So you've got Hillsong, you've got Bethel, you've got Elevation. Like a lot of the huge producers of worship music are tied to church. It's sort of a common thing. And there are lesser versions of that. There's Church of the Highlands and all these other places. But as a pastor, I'm curious what it feels like, because I would say that I feel like Blake and the team have done a great job of this being an expression of who the church is, but it does not feel like that it's overpowering, or it is the main thing we communicate, that it's now the most important thing about us. But I wonder, as a pastor, do you feel the same? Do you feel excited about it? Do you feel like you have to constantly stay on Blake so that he doesn't sort of try to become the lead personality? I know that's probably not true, but I'm just curious what your relationship to it is, because you're not in there making the music. But as this thing happens, what's it been like? Like, what does it feel like to have this thing sort of slowly becoming great in your church?
I don't know, Blake, if you would use this exact way of saying this. We've not had this conversation before, but I don't know that I can answer really succinctly why I think that this is important. It has felt to me this whole time like something that, first of all, that I've seen in Blake that he's been compelled to do. There's something deeper going on in him, and part of that, obviously my knowledge of him and our relationship and our friendship is deep enough for me to know his character and who he is. So it immediately lets me cut past any idea that songwriting is in any way, or producing anything, releasing any album is in any way a look at us sort of thing. So, you can immediately throw that out. Yeah. But there seems to me to be, just watching him, watching the team, there's this compelling to do this. And I almost want to say, Todd, I don't think, again, I don't know if I'm speaking for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. It's almost a sense in which, like, we don't even fully really know all of the why yet. it has, in every album, at every step, it's been almost this discovery process where it feels like we're doing something that this is really important for the local church. At the same time, it feels like a lost art. You know, you like go back into the history of hymn writing and the repetitive nature, the way that those songs were sung and the stories that they came from. That feels like we're tapping into that a little bit while living in a world where local church, and I'm air quoting that, local church songwriting is really, really connected to name and image, and it's really corporate. So it feels like we're doing something that is really important. Why it's important, I don't know that we fully realize yet. And so part of it has been discovering along the way as we've released these albums, and as you watch people interact with different songs in different ways, it's like you go, oh, that's why. And it's been new and different. Each album has been different. Almost to the song has been different in the way in which it impacts people. So it feels like we're carrying something sacred, and I feel like I've been watching him carry something sacred, this thing I'm compelled to do, and it's as if God's just saying, you just got to come with me here, and I'm going to show you why this is really important. So I don't know that I think this will be something where we look back 20 years from now and we will see it in a whole different way than what we even realize is going on
I think that's the case with most, like you said, a lot of the songs and albums that we've released. I feel like we go down that road, and I don't exactly know why. And then we get to the end of it, and you and I are eating Mexican food and saying, what are we going to do with this now? And then it turns into something that we had no expectation. I mean, I'm talking about the All My Hope track.
Yeah, it's a great example.
And that turned into something that impacted a lot of people in our church in lots of different ways that we had no idea. Coming out of sabbatical, when we were writing that song, recording it, and then making a short film with it, and it's still impacting folks. So,
and what's really rare about that is that you put all this down on paper. Okay, this is a church. It's this many people. There's a guy who writes songs, and the team puts them out. So don't want to speak in absolutes, but in so many cases like that, if you were to go find another church that was doing that exact same thing, like you're saying, a lot of times you would find like, oh, this is our system we do. We put out an album every 11 months, and we go through these channels, and this is what we do. Whereas this is real different, where it's like a real sort of walk of faith, right? Like, okay, God, I'm going to write this. Okay, what do you want to do here? And so what happens is, I think, and I've heard the album, so I know this. I think what happens is you end up getting these songs that are no doubt written for the church. I've written this for my church.
Right.
But you are not getting a song that's been through some sort of committee or plan of like, well, let's hit them with this because we always know this works. You're getting like these really fresh new things, and it's kind of scary because maybe people don't gravitate to it. But like you're saying, on the back end, you go, oh my goodness, God knew exactly what he's going to do with that one song. And so that is not real common. A lot of folks want that to be. So you mentioned Springsteen. Steven Van Zandt, the guitar player for Springsteen for so long, has this great quote about music, really about all of art. And he says, the problem with today's culture is we want to turn art into math. We want to turn it into this formula, right? We've got an entire entertainment structure built on this. And so when I listen to the record, that's what I hear. It's like, even song to song, it's like, they're kind of similar in some of the connections, but they're so different. And it is sort of this wide open, okay, well, which one of these is going to hit? And only the Lord knows, or which one's going to hit in 3 years. Right. Yeah. And so there's just something about being faithful, I think, that's so commendable. I will also say that I don't know if you guys hear this, so I'll say this to both of you. So when I come in here, right? So, I have you guys set me up a green room. There's some candy and some waters and stuff. And we go through that whole thing. Oh, Todd, thank you so much. And
get to the check and all
here's the check and thank you. And anything else, Mr. Wright. Okay. All that. But here's what's amazing. When I walk in here, like, there'll just be like a movie poster on the wall with just some old guy who goes to church here. right? That has been interviewed or been the focus of something, or there's people in the hallways. And so one thing that I think the music has captured is that it really does feel like this place is a legit church family, right? So this is a weird way to say it, but there are stars here. There are people who've been here and they've been faithful, and we know their stories. And it does not feel like this church is like, well, what's the next hip thing to do, right? Well, what does the church marketing machine tell us to do? It feels like, no. This is a church forging its own path, really trying to, owning its identity and following what God's calling it to do. And I will tell you, as a guy that kind of walks in a lot of churches, that is really refreshing, And so then that leads me to Blake, and I know some of this is your personality, but another question I had for you is, so on this thing on the 11th, you're going to play these songs, you're going to tell these stories. I know you well enough to know that you're a gifted communicator, you're a gifted musician, gifted producer. Do you feel any struggle? Because I would say of your church, for both of you guys, I feel like you guys are very wise and very protective that this does not become a church built on a personality, right? That because we know personality is fleeting and we know it doesn't sustain. Is that a temptation for you? Or do you think God's just wired you and gifted you? Because I feel like you are not that guy. Yeah. You are not the guy who's like, give me the mic. Right. Some guys are. I'm kind of give me the mic guy. And God has to constantly spank me over that. But I'm just curious if that's ever a struggle, because you're going to sit up there on the 11th and you're going to be like, here's all the songs I wrote. And there are some guys like me that I would have to pray, God, will you keep me with the right heart? Do you struggle with that? Or do you feel like that's something
I think it's part of my personality. I'm not overly comfortable in the spotlight. And so that for me is the struggle of like, okay, can I go into this thing confident and say the things and do the things I need to do and say to communicate effectively? I will say, like, even as I look back in the last 10 years of writing music for the church here, that's one area I want to grow in, as far as bringing more people in that, where I am less of the face of it. I think by default over the years, that's kind of how it's been, just because I've been here 10 years, but still trying to figure things out and trying to figure out what this ministry looks like in regards to original music and songs for the church. So I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday about that, of like, okay, I want to figure out how to involve more of other people's stories and their perspectives, and not just me interpreting the things that I see. So I don't know if that answers your question. No,
that's it. Yeah, though and that feels like, that feels like you. I mean, everything sounds like, that kind of sounds like.
I'm perfectly fine with being in the background. I feel like that's a place that I can thrive in. But at the same time, I know God's given me a voice and a platform, and I need to use that and steward that well.
And isn't it crazy? So, I may have said this last time, but like, anytime I talk to a worship leader who's been at a church longer than about 5 or 6 years, I'm like, bro, you are more rare than you know. I mean, worship leaders, they just bounce from place to place to place. And so it's almost like, I feel like worship leader years are like dog years. They're like multiplied. Like 10 years in a church. But isn't it interesting that I mean, so when did the first sort of original stuff come out of here? Do you remember? How long had you been here? Or was that pretty early?
A few months.
That's a good story.
And that'll be a story that we talk about.
Okay, great. Well, because here's what I was going to say. Isn't it crazy, though, how kind of long... I mean, so this is proof for staying faithful in any capacity. I mean, I would bet it was probably 5 years before you probably were able to go, oh, that's what's going on. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, which you never would have got to if...
I would have
jumped 2 years to some other church that maybe paid more or had a better stage or whatever. And so I feel like the songs, in a weird way, are also this testimony to faithfulness. I feel like they just speak to that. Kendall, what is the part of this whole thing that Blake's doing? This whole thing he's got going on. What's the hardest part to sort of understand or feel like you can speak into? Is there any part of it where you're like, I don't really know? Or do you feel like y'all are close enough you're able to kind of vibe with everything going on? Or are there parts of it where you're like, should I say something? Should I not? Is there anything like that?
Oh, I mean, I think for sure. I think there's, as somebody that I'm certainly not a musician, but there feels like, I don't know if other pastors would say this, but there feels like there's an art and a craft to my process and what I go through every week as I think about preaching and teaching. And so on some level, though not near in this, not in the same universe, but on some level, I kind of understand process and kind of the sacredness of that process. And so there is absolutely in the back of my mind kind of a question that runs around, is this, if I have a thought, I've got to really think about whether or not this is just me throwing my 2 cents in and actually disrupting the very process that would bring something good, or is this, actually helpful? And I would say, I don't know how other pastor worship leader relationships work, but I would say Blake and I over the 10 or 11 years now that we've worked together have developed a extreme level of trust where even when those mistakes I think are made, and I certainly make those, it's okay.
Yeah.
And it comes within the ecosystem of our friendship. And so he's able to hear my thoughts and throw out the ones that are no good, and knows that he doesn't, it's not like I'm saying this is what you have to do. And then I think Blake carries an extreme humility where, we had a conversation the other day about this very event coming up, and I was able to say, here's a thought, and he walks in a humility that lets him go, that's a good, he's not, he doesn't feel silly that the pastor has said this, and and he's able to take that, and so what's good he takes and throws, and then what's bad, which is probably most of it, he throws out. But I would say our relationship is what allows that to go well.
Yeah, I think that even talking about that, what we were talking about the other day, like I feel like a lot of times I have the idea and the thought, and I create this thing, and sometimes I have the disconnect of connecting that with the folks that we're, what's the best way to present this to them. I think that, you and I always sit down and kind of try to discuss, okay, how are we going to release this? What are we going to do with this? And that to me is a major piece of the process, but also with our relationship that we can do that. So it's really beneficial to me to have that person there, because I can create and design, but then it's like, okay, where does this go? How does this live in the life of our church?
Well, and I think that's a really important point. And it comes back to, why does Blake not want the spotlight? Well, it's personality, but for sure. And he has an incredible humility that I think is rare. But the other thing is that I think why it works together with us is that I think Blake takes really, really, really seriously his accountability to this place, to these people, to what is local. And Blake's really talented. He could step outside of the boundaries of this location and be effective. He could write things that don't fit here, and it would be good stuff. Yeah. But Blake understands kind of this role of a pastor as being deeply connected to the soil that God has put you in, and I think that forms so much of what he does. It's why he wants what he sings and what he writes to connect, because it needs to come from this place. It's why he's willing to share the spotlight, because it's these people that this is for anyway. They wrote the songs anyway. Yeah. He just sees himself as kind of a conduit for expressing what God's doing locally. It's why he, I think, values my insight, because he sees my job as being deeply connected locally. And so we're going, how do we steward this together? Because this is about this place and what God is doing here. And I think that's a huge part, and connects back in his story, but it's a huge part of why he does what he does and the way he operates.
And everything y'all are saying, I just keep thinking, oh, well, yeah, this is what families do. I mean, this is what a family is, right?
Sure.
So, good, healthy family, that happens all the time. Hey, I this person speaks into this person's life, and because we love and trust each other, we listen to each other. I mean, so that to me seems evident through everything that I've seen here. Like, it does seem like a family. It's still a church, but like I said, it is not it's not marketing. It just feels very authentic. Everything that has come out of here, especially the songs, because that's what I'm most familiar with, seems completely authentic. So Blake, is there anything you didn't get to do, either for time or budget or material not being done? I mean, anything that man, if you'd had another month, you would have added.
I guess I did have another month.
Well, but maybe
okay.
it's.
I think the answer is no, though, because you and I actually talked about another song, and that I was considering adding to that.
Yeah,
and I almost was trying to force it.
Sure.
Like, I felt that tension of like, hey, we got another song that we're releasing something, we might as well throw that on there. And as I tried to put that song together, it's a great song, and I think there's still something for it in the future. I just like, no, I can't. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. And so I was pretty happy with the way that it turned out as a project.
Yeah.
You know?
Now that I've listened to it all the way through, I would agree. So are you able to tell the track listing, or you want to keep that?
Yeah.
So what's the order?
The order is, that's a good question. So
no?
How's it go? The first song is Rock of Ages, which is a song that you and I wrote that was kind of a modern take on that hymn with an additional chorus. And then the second song is a song called Lead Me to Your Throne. Third song is the title track, Anchor. Fourth song is a new arrangement of the hymn, There's a Fountain. And the last song is an acoustic version of a previous release track called Come Find Rest.
Yeah. We all sat around the front porch and sang it together. Yeah,
that's what it sounds like, right? Yeah.
You did a good job. Did you mix that?
I did.
Yeah, that's real good.
That was my first dive into doing something
So I don't
in-house.
think I'd listened to a final mix, and I was like, oh, I recorded a vocal for this at my house.
Mm-hmm,
and I was like, man, he better mix this good. I do not want to sound bad on this thing. But you mixed it great.
Yeah,
and
I did
so
all
that
kinds
was
of,
yeah.
Well, and and I'll say from a production standpoint, like, I listened to that track in particular, and even as from when I mixed it 5 months ago to now, I would probably do it differently, but I kind of wanted to leave it as it was. That was, even as I look back, I'm going to think, okay, I'm going to listen to this song 5 years from now and be like, this is all that I've learned on how to do this on my own, which was kind of a big deal and a limb to kind of go out on that. Yeah. I felt a little uncomfortable, but felt like I needed to do that.
You did great. And it's so interesting. I mean, sermons and songs are a little bit similar in this way. I think a lot of times you think, oh, this one thing, people they're gonna love this, or this is the moment, right? And then how many times have you ever preached or done a song and the feedback you get is about something totally different, right? Some other thing that you didn't even think was that great, and God uses it. God uses it to bless people. So yeah, I mean, I think that's if there's any sort of thing to sort of convince us to not over process or doctor music, especially because you don't know. You don't know. And how many songs do we love? Like I listened to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about songs where the bass is mixed too hot, like famous like pop songs and Motown songs. And there's songs like they would say it, and I would think, well, the bass isn't too loud on that. And then they would play it, and once you listen, you go, oh, the bass is way too loud.
Yeah.
But then you go, but I love that song. That's you know what I mean? So there's no accounting for how that's going to translate.
That same YouTube video I was talking about, the Bruce Springsteen, they were soloing all the different tracks. This guy had all the original masters, and there's a track of Bruce playing electric guitar, and he's just wildly out of tune, just gong, 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 gong. But it's like, it works, and it's in that mix, and you wouldn't want to go in there and doctor that up too much. He said that Bruce would listen to a mix back and go, that's too perfect. I need you to muddy that up a little bit, and so
I don't think you and I have ever said that. I think we go the other way. Like, please, can you make this?
Doctor this a little bit.
Okay, so Kendall, I'm going to ask you this question because I think this will help me get to know you a little bit better. So, well, tell me this: what do you know about? Do you know anything about Blake and guitars? I mean, is there anything you know about him? And I know it's a very weird question to ask, but if it's nothing, if you're like, no, I don't really know
up for something here, but
anything, or are you just like, no, Blake has guitars? And
oh man, that's a good question. I don't know. I know that Blake has a unique relationship with guitars.
Yes.
My ability to describe that unique relationship is
I don't know if anybody can.
very shallow. I mean, just this last weekend I'll tell a quick story.
Please.
We were in one of our associate pastors, Matt, that we mentioned, he was preaching this. He was going to preach this Sunday, and so I always sit in rehearsal. It helps me. I love listening to them go through their final process. It really helps me.
You do that every week?
Every week.
Wow.
It helps me dial in kind of what I'm going to say. And a lot of times, some of the stuff I was going to say shifts and changes based on what I hear them doing.
That's awesome.
So anyway, I'm always in there when they're doing their rehearsal, and rehearsal was, I'm just going to tell on you. He was behind. He was
way behind
schedule.
Yeah.
But you want to know why he was there was a reason why he was behind. Blake had just got a new guitar. And so there was this,
Do I know about a new guitar?
So Matt came in here. Matt comes in the worship center and sits down next to me. He's like, man, I was coming in for sound check. They're behind. And I said, Matt, Blake got a new guitar, and he had Drew playing the
steel, which
steel
takes about an hour to set up.
So all the musicians are geeking out, and they're all like wanting to play Blake's new guitar, and Blake spends an extra 10 or 15 minutes talking about it.
Sure.
And, so he just gets there's this giddiness.
This all tracks with what I'm going to say.
That's what I know about Blake and guitars.
So Blake, my friend, my co-writer, my brother, he's a guitar snob. He's a guitar snob.
That's what that's called?
Okay.
Yeah.
He's just a guitar snob, and that's okay. Listen, I wish I was rich enough to be a guitar snob, but he is, and that's okay. That's the way the Lord is blessed.
I don't know if it's rich or just irresponsible.
But I'm curious, what are you a snob about? There's got to be something that you really care about. So, for example, our senior pastor at my church, he is a Bible snob. Like he collects Bibles. He likes to get, the old and the leather bound and, all that sort of stuff. Is there anything, and it doesn't have to be ministry related. Is there anything that you're like, what are you a nerd about? Might be a better question. Everybody's a nerd about something.
I mean, man, I would love to hear what you think. I mean, I'm kind of a nerd about basketball.
Okay.
I love basketball.
Pro, college, anything?
The game.
The whole thing.
I just love to watch and be around the game. I guess I would say I'm a nerd about that.
Are we talking about something that's like just ridiculous kind of deal? Cause
let's shame Kendall if possible.
I mean,
Sure.
he's just a ridiculous Texas Tech fan.
That's true too.
Okay.
That's where he went to college.
That's true,
And it seems
part
like
of that is a coping mechanism.
You're all in, like you, like Texas. Yeah, you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
He's
but
wearing
not.
You're wearing a lumberjack shirt right now. It's only
That's
because
true.
Texas Tech is in the running of acquiring SFA.
It would be great, but no.
Imagine the shirt you could wear then.
Well, this is, so we'll go, we don't need to probably derail too much here, but my parents both went there. That's where I went to school. That's where Lindsay went to school, my wife. That's where we met. But the joke is really that I talk about it a lot as a coping. Tech historically, it's just never been really good at much. And we're kind of always in the laughing middle. And so part of my fandom is a bit of a coping mechanism for never actually winning.
Yeah, I can see
until
that.
recently, our basketball team, which has been good. But for the most part, the life of a Red Raider fan is a very, just not a super happy life. So part of my fandom is coping with that. So
okay, well, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
I don't know. Maybe
Okay.
that's what I nerd out about.
All right. Well, Blake, last thing that I kind of had in my mind to ask is, so the record's done. It's coming out tomorrow. Do you already know what you're doing next? Like, do you have some song ideas that you want to chase? I mean, I will say this, that in a few weeks, I'm going to lead one that he and I wrote a few months ago, back in May, maybe.
Yeah, it's been a few
Firm
months.
Foundation?
Yeah.
That I really think is my folks are going to just love. Now, I don't have a recording of it. I'm just going to teach it to the band. We're just going to do it real simple. So I know even for me, I'm like, well, next time I record, I might could do that. Do you have anything that you already know? Yeah, I'm going to mess with that, or any song ideas now, or a lot of people will do that thing of like, no, the album's done. I'm just going to chill.
Yeah.
And just wait for kind of inspiration to strike. I mean, what type of creative are you?
I don't know what type of creative I am. I know that I was in a really good habit of songwriting but I haven't been the last 3 or 4 months. And so honestly, I don't have like a backlog of things that I want to go ahead and, put on the books for the studio in whatever, time period. I do know of some folks that are on our team that are writing some music, and
That's right. You told me that. Yeah.
I would really like to kind of explore that and see what comes out of those interactions and those songs. So that's kind of where I want to go next is see, okay, what do other folks have to say, and how can we, pull that out of them?
Which is seriously, that's a very mature way. I mean, so if you think about, all right, we've now done two full EPs or 3? What's
two EPs and a handful of singles.
And listen, so y'all could probably make the argument of like, hey, now Blake's figured out how to do this, right? So there are a lot of guys who'll be like, okay, time for record number 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty humble and pretty mature to go, okay, thank you, God. You've blessed that. Now let's go to this new challenge, which probably, and I don't know your folks, I think I've heard a few things they've been working on, but most likely discipling them and working with them is going to be harder than just you and me writing 5 songs.
Going in a room, writing a song, and then calling up the producer and saying, let's go to the studio next week.
So that's, that's maybe a harder path, but I do feel like it is sort of sharing the wealth of knowledge, right? That you can sort of speak into that now, having done this sort of thing a couple different times. Do you have a favorite song on this new collection? It better be a Todd Wright co-write. I swear it better. You better not.
It's hard to. It's like picking your favorite.
No, it's
kid.
not. No, it's not.
It is.
It is not.
I will say my wife's favorite is "Lead Me to Your Throne." She thinks that's one of the better songs I've written. You weren't a part of that song.
That's something. When your wife likes it, though, that's like because they hear everything, and that's awesome.
Yeah,
like that's a.
I think other than I think that's a great song. Anchor, which you did help write, is probably one of my.
I don't think I did.
You did. Me and Sky wrote. Okay. Y'all wrote.
Well, I was going to say Anchor's my favorite.
Yeah,
and I felt proud of myself because I didn't write it. And look
you're
how
on that. You're on the credits for
look
that.
How look how that humble I'm being. Because I listened to it today, and I just that one to me. And it'll be interesting to see when people hear it what they think. It feels to me like it's just a little different. So it's not like super poppy. It's not like stylistic. There's just something about it that feels a little, I don't know. It's just different. And I was listening to it a couple times on the way here, and I thought, what is it about it? I just love it, man. And I think it may be the phrasing, it may be some of the melody stuff, but man, that is
well. And
that's a great.
And I'll talk more about this on Sunday night. But that was a very personal song for me. And that song itself, it wasn't the first song written for the album, but it was the song that was kind of the cornerstone of it. It was the concept came from that particular song. And so, I think it's probably my favorite. I love how it turned out. Like you said, it's a little different. It's not normal, but I think it's enjoyable to listen to, at least for me. And that's kind of why I wanted to record some songs that you just can enjoy listening to.
How many of them are in drop D? Do you not want to tell that?
I've recorded in drop D on 3 of the 5 songs.
Yeah, Blake loves drop D.
Not all of them are written in drop D.
No,
but
that's true.
What's interesting, and a lot of those were I just got in the studio and the acoustic parts I was playing, they weren't working.
Yeah,
and I was like, hey, Heath,
it.
hold on. And I drop it down to drop D, and I was like, okay, this is where it's at.
So are y'all able to, Blake, you probably can more, but Kendall, I'd love for you to chime in. I'd love it if you can shout out as many of the people that were involved in this as you can. I know you may not remember everybody, but I'm thinking players, singers, techs. I know you can remember it, right?
Oh yeah. I can
look at him go.
Remember, look at him go.
Maybe I should ask Kendall. Maybe that's the real.
I don't know. He probably wouldn't.
He'd probably do better than you.
No.
But who all is it? Let's shout them out because they've done a great job.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say that I'm looking at a list now, so this may be a little awkward, but I've got a track listing with all the folks who helped out. Obviously, I would start with you, and this seems like I'm buttering you up, but your name is on here a lot. I mean, let's see, 1, 2, 3 or 4 of the songs on here. Three of the 5
crazy.
songs you were a part of, even though you didn't realize it. And so
Todd's so good he doesn't even know he wrote that song.
but members of my team that were involved: Drew, the guitar,
Yeah.
Wizard, the prodigy, and Riley, my armor bearer. Let's see, Emily and Brendan Todd, that powerhouse duo. Let's see, I'm going to forget people. Anne, another armor bearer, she sang on some of your stuff too. Let's see, John Kennan. This is one of my favorite. He's our bass player on Sunday, but he's also a band director, and so on There's a Fountain, there's a big horn section at
So
the end,
cool.
and it hits you in the face.
Comes out of nowhere.
It comes out of
You're
nowhere.
like, whoa,
And
I love it.
And it was a crazy idea that we had in the studio, and I messaged John and said, "Hey, here's what we're doing," and he orchestrated and wrote that and played all the parts himself. Now, he will tell you that was the most frustrating moments of his entire life, that he will never do it again.
Just because he was working off kind of an improv.
Yeah, and
trying to figure it
he's
out.
playing instruments that aren't his primary instrument.
I never would have
And
thought
so,
that. Like, it sounds so legit.
Oh yeah, he did a great job, and I think it makes that.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to think of who else we had.
And Heath mixed
and
it.
so in the studio we had. We kind of joked around there. It's the Encore Studio Renting Crew.
That's right.
It's the guys that I come in there with just a acoustic demo, and they listen to it maybe once or twice, and then they come up with this thing that you hear. So the rhythm section on this album is all tracked live. So drums, bass, and keys are all done live
awesome.
in the room, and you're usually listening to like maybe the second or third take of them going through it. So those guys, their ability to do that. No, they're not members of our normal team, but they are able to enable us to really pump out some stuff very quickly and with really high professionalism. So, I think that's a good chunk of the folks. We had a whole group sing on There's a Fountain too.
Yeah.
And there's several people from our team were able to help out on that. So
Yeah, and in fact, I think there's a song. I've got a song coming out next year that I'm going to have to featuring Fredonia Hill, because so many of y'all are on.
We had
it,
a whole group of people help
that's
out
great,
on that.
man. That's great. So unless you guys have something, I'd love to end with this. Kendall, the event on the 11th is not your event technically,
Sure.
but pastorally, what's your hope for that? What would success look like that? Look for what would it look like as a guy who's leading this church, probably sitting out in the pew? What do you think
We have
you'd like to see happen?
We don't have pews. We have chairs.
Oh, sorry. I'm so
And
sorry.
those chairs will be in a different location too.
Oh,
Just
yes. Yeah. A little.
Teaser for the
little
event.
teaser. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's, now that we've gotten sidetracked on details, Kendall, when you're sitting in a chair that's now different than it normally is on Sunday, let's be sure and get that right.
No, that's right.
What's your hope for the 11th?
I mean, I think it's really similar to my hope for this podcast, which is that the intersection of song and praise with life and story. I mean, that's a biblical intersection. I mean, that's the Psalms. And so my hope is that as people listen to the songs and listen to the stories, it for them helps them integrate life and worship. It gives them a vocal expression to the faithfulness of God in every season. The song Anchor is about a tough season, and gives them praise for different seasons, and connects real life to praise and to worship. And I think telling stories alongside songs is really what draws that out. So I think that's what I would certainly hope for.
Well, so I'll say this. So first of all, let it be heard far and wide. Blake, you're a fantastic songwriter, fantastic producer, fantastic worship leader.
Yeah.
Kendall, you're leading this church so well. I even know that. I don't even go here, and I hear enough about how great you are. So usually you don't hear good stuff from afar. You hear bad stuff from afar, right?
Right.
But I hear good stuff from afar. And so I just want to tell you both, I think what you're doing really, really matters a whole lot, probably more than you know. And then if you could both turn off your mics and take your headphones off, I want to speak to the listeners now. So let's take a second. Go ahead. Thank you guys for doing that. So here's the deal that I will say. There has never been a time in culture where music's been more available. I mean, literally, you think of a song in your car, within 2 minutes, you can find somewhere to listen to it, whether you've got an app or you go on YouTube or wherever. We've got more music than we've ever had in our lives. And yet, it seems as insignificant as it's ever been. When we were kids, if there was a song you loved, you listened to it constantly. You told people about it. You made a mixtape. You burned a CD. You posted on MySpace. I mean, there was a time when we really listened to music and shared it like crazy. And so I am asking folks, as they listen to the new record, to do that, to share it. Find a song. You have to share the whole thing. If you don't like the whole thing, that's fine. Find a song that you absolutely love and share it. Because I will say the thing that Blake will not say. The worst part about putting music out, especially a collection of songs, if it's more than one, is you get about 4 or 5 days of people like talking about it, sharing it with friends. And after about a week, you look up and you go, oh, I guess that's it. And I know Blake well enough to know that he's not going to be the guy every day for a month going, hey, don't forget about my thing. So if you are a listener, find a way to share it. Find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all those things. Just share it. Just share it for a few days, because your friends, your family, all of those spheres of influence will help those songs be heard. And there is no telling who out there needs to hear Anchor or who needs to hear Rock of Ages. People that Blake will never be able to reach, would never know, who aren't going to see anything Blake posts or anything that the church posts. So I'm asking you, please share it. Not so that Blake gets famous, not so that Blake makes money, because we don't make money off music, but because these songs deserve to be heard by as many people as possible. And what if, I'm just saying, what if more people listen to a Fredonia Hill song over the next few weeks than they would a Carrie Underwood song or a Luke Bryan song? They get enough spins. It's Fredonia Hill's time, okay? So please share it. I think people will be blessed by it. I know the team at Fredonia Hill will be. Okay, you guys can come back in now. I'm done.
All right,
hey, guys, I'm done. Y'all want to come on back in here?
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Well, that was great.
I mean, that's all I got.
I appreciate that. It's weird because we literally just had this exact same conversation yesterday about the consumption and, you know, how we listen to music and CDs and things whenever we were younger and how that's changed now. So
it's crazy.
It's remarkable.
I will say this. I was in a music store with my son. This is years ago. And Dallas Holm walked in. Some people remember Dallas Holm, this famous Christian singer. So he lives up near Tyler. And so he walks in. My son was probably 15 or 16. We're in this guitar store. And I'm like, hey, Jonah, that guy over there, I mean, you wouldn't know this, but like he was like Christian music famous. He had this song called Rise Again. It was this huge hit. Like he was legit famous. And my son, first thing he does is pulls out his phone and he pulls up Dallas Holm on Spotify. And he kind of smirks, you know, and I'm like, what? And he's like, we don't even have 1 million listens on Rise Again. And I'm like, this was before Spotify. You know, show the guy some love. So it is harder. It's harder to have a hit and to get a bunch of streams. But as many people's listen to this, listen, you want to be a forever fan of this podcast? You play these songs and you share them like crazy and you show up on the 11th.
Yeah.
I'll be here the 11th.
That's right.
Anybody wants to meet me,
so
take
we
pictures.
still want you to come. That's
I'm assuming, I'm going to come. Wouldn't it be funny if I came and it was all just a trick, like I wasn't singing and Blake just ushers me like to a seat?
I'm just going to skip those songs.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
this has been so enlightening, and I'm proud of this record, even though I didn't make it. I feel like I'm just as invested as y'all are. So I hope it's received really well.
Let's do this. We'll close today with a new track. We'll play it for the listeners on this podcast. So you're the guest. You pick of the tracks on the album. Which one would you want to feature?
That's good.
I think you ought to play There's a Fountain.
Okay.
I think that horn section is just too strong.
So good.
Yeah. So, and it's towards the end.
It's towards the end. The whole front half of the song is pretty chill, so don't get used to it because it's going to, there at the end.
Which is the one where you count us in? Is that Come Find Rest or is that on
Yeah,
There's a
that's on
Fountain?
Come Find Rest.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I may have heard that, but today I was like, okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
There's some cool stuff on there, man.
So,
but yeah, let's hear There's a Fountain.
Okay. We'll do There's a Fountain. Kendall, you got anything to add to?
Man, we just thank you so much for listening. Keep listening. I know it's been a little bit of a different take, but it's so wound up in the stories that we've been telling. It's wound up in the stories that you've been telling on this on this podcast. This album comes straight from the soil of Nacogdoches and what God is doing here. And so thanks for sharing your stories. It's what makes writing these songs what they are. Yeah. And we want to continue to do that. We've got some great guests coming up. So stick around in the weeks to come for those. And we will hopefully see you on the 11th. And other than that, I think that's
it.
Adios.
Read